Jinx a lot.
Knock on wood. Hey, we're live.
Hey, why are you running like it's like disabling a bomb? What is the deal?
What?
What is that game you play on your phone where you're like have to fly the ship?
Oh, Space Team.
Space Team, yeah, it's like a Space Team. We're having Roger run the Hangout video because I'm going to be gone for the next 2 weeks, and he's going to do it. So we're running through it today to make sure we get all the kinks out.
Oh, okay.
Just trying to make sure I'm not running too many things. Killing my pro. Not gonna. Well, it's independent of my laptop anyway. It's all on Google, right? Isn't it on Google's end anyway?
Yeah, the streaming is, yeah. Once you press that live button, then you're good.
Yeah, but that like whatever load. My only thing is because I'm also running the screens. I'm trying to make sure
you're only streaming yourself. You're not streaming anyone else.
Yeah, but no, I want to say like I want everything working because once I start doing the screens, my attention will be rolled elsewhere.
Gotcha. All right, I'm going to record the audio as well. If that's fine with everyone. Everyone good? Okay. Yeah. All right.
Believe it or not, I'm still waiting for my Photoshop to start up. So.
You do need a new computer. That's horrible.
I do.
Somebody buy Len a new computer.
Yes. Send me some sweet old Patreon money at my Patreon.
You should make a level for that.
It should just be one huge, like, $1,000 level. Hey,
Len's new computer level.
This will guarantee I can even do anything during the day. So, no, you know what? I was off. I probably needed to restart it a couple days ago, and everything's okay. Everything's okay. I'm still working okay.
I don't want to mess with it. Yeah. So Jenn, I don't have a title or anything. How do you want me to introduce you?
It's just generally producer, right? Because like I'm taking the summer off, and it's been lovely. It's been so nice.
Lady of leisure, perhaps. No, I'll just do Jenn Cutter, producer.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Well, let's go.
By the
you
way,
guys ready?
Nice to meet you. By the way.
Nice to meet you too. Oh, it's a quick question for you. Which Photoshop are you using? Are you going with the? Are you using the 0.5 or are you using the older version? Because
I'm using the older version. I'm still doing. I'm not on the Creative Cloud yet. I haven't made that. Yeah, I haven't made that yet. I'm still at CS6. So.
Wow, that is dedication.
Yeah.
At least you own it though. I'm so mad about my Creative Cloud bills. I can't even tell you.
I don't. I didn't need another extra bill. Anyway, we'll talk after the show.
All right.
All right, cool. Here we go.
Daily Tech News Show is brought to you by listeners like me. To find out more, visit dailytechnewsshow.com/support.
This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, August 26th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Joining me today, Jenn Cutter, producer, back on the show. It's been a little bit, but good to have you back, Jenn.
Good to be back. Yeah, last time I was here, it was just before I kind of took off to Nevada to go to Evo.
Oh, right.
It was amazing. Tons of fun.
And then you've had a little
nice
bit
long
of a
vacation.
Summer break. Yeah, that's
fantastic.
Break.
Taking the summer for myself.
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about esports and VR and a company's attempt to change your spectating position using VR. That's very
Spending
curious.
Lots of money to do it.
Yeah, or at least raising. I guess then they spend it. Yeah, absolutely. Back on a Friday, of course, Len Peralta with us as well, and we gave you something visual to draw today, Len.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be pretty good. I don't know. We'll see.
All right, man. But meanwhile, we've got news. Bloomberg saying Spotify punishes songs that debut exclusively on other platforms like Apple Music or Tidal by burying them when they finally do come to Spotify. Seems like a little sour grapes. Now here are some more top stories. Sources told Mark Gurman and Gareth Allen from Bloomberg that Apple plans to add Sony's Felica chip to a future iPhone. Now, if you're not familiar with Felica, it does not emulate people named Felicia. It is a tap-to-pay tech similar to near-field communication. It's basically Sony's proprietary NFC chip. It's used widely in Japan. If you've ever used the mass transit cards there like Suica or Pasmo, that's what's in them. That's the chip that's in them. They work not only on mass transit, but you can use them to buy things out of vending machines. You can use them at convenience stores and some restaurants and cafes. Apple is supposedly ready to add the Felica chip to the next iPhone, but they might delay transit support if they can't get the negotiations with the payment networks worked out. So Jenn,
it's totally neat, but it's one of those things where it's so cool, but I like money. I'm always terrified about losing my phone. I'm terrified.
Have you been to Japan?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
I was curious because I have not yet. I will be going there tomorrow, so I'll report back on these Suiza cards, Passmo cards, because I'm going to get one of those because they have a similar situation in San Francisco with the Clipper card. And I know like the Oyster card in London is like this as well. Those all use NFC though, as far as I can tell. What fascinates me about this so much is the idea that an entire country would be beholden to one company's proprietary technology.
Yeah, in Toronto we have 2 competing cards for the transit systems, and I don't know which one they're going to go with. I pay with money, so I can always get on and never have to worry about which card uses where, which trains I'm switching to. It's all good.
But do you worry about not having enough cash sometime or not having proper change? That's what always bugged me, and that's why I liked these cards when they came along.
It's always a good idea. I carry tons of change for when I go downtown. I have a car otherwise, so I'm really spoiled that way. I carry a car full of change, and it's just full of loonies and toonies to cover the ever-raising fares.
Bloomberg reports that Twitter is developing a tool that will let users block posts by keyword. This would be part of their efforts to combat harassment. So the idea being you could say, oh, well, this racist term, I just don't want any post that contains it to show up, and you would never see them. Jenn, I know you have quite a bit to say about Twitter and their efforts here. What do you think?
Oh, I have thoughts. I have thoughts and words, and a lot of them would probably be banned by this this new filter. But this is something that even YouTube figured out eons ago in internet time, being able to ban these words. And third-party tools and apps already let you do this. Why is Twitter so far behind? I've been hearing that Twitter is serious about anti-harassment tools for more than 6 years. 6 years! And that's how long I've been hearing about it. People have been dealing with this for far longer. And just the cost of all these smart, wonderful, talented people leaving Twitter, it's going to catch up with them. I have wonderful friends who will not join Twitter because of the risks to their personal selves. It's too great for them to even bother trying.
So you're glad they're doing it, but sort of like you're real late to the game, Twitter. I totally get that. What would they have to do to change that perception and get people to say, oh, okay, I feel like it's turned the corner now?
Well, right now, if you are a normal person on Twitter and you are being targeted by a hate mob, it sucks to be you. If you are medium famous, you have to know somebody who knows somebody at Twitter, and then you can get some help. If you're really famous, you can get help right away. And then people will write articles saying how sad it is that this is happening, as if it's the first time that this has ever happened. And then everybody congratulates themselves on a job well done, while they wait for the next target, and the next target is coming. We all know what's going to happen. It could be the next week, it could be the week after. And it's so predictable, it's literally textbook. It's the same kind of attacks. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And the one thing I would expect a tech company to be good at would be identifying patterns.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that is largely true, but I think exaggerated, is this isn't just about subgroups. It is definitely more common for minorities, for women, but it is for everyone. Everyone can be targeted if you say something unpopular. And that's the part that Twitter, I think, is trying to figure out. And maybe they're trying to be too clever, and that's why it's taking them too long. Rather than putting some more of these blunt force solutions, like just let people ban words, like you say, that has been a tool that's been in the toolbox for a long time. I think maybe they've been trying to come up with the perfect solution that will solve it for every single case. And instead, because we're waiting for them to do that, we have no cases being solved, or virtually none.
No, and I think even just some increased communication would go a long way into proving that Twitter does at least care or pretend to care. Because right now people are filing all these reports, and then Nothing. You will get these automated replies saying, oh, we looked into it and they deleted it already, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, what about the account? What about the history of that account that has 3 tweets, but every day they post 2,000 comments to people that are just hateful, and then as soon as they get notified, oh, there's a report against you, they just delete it, and there's no harm, no foul? That's how that works somehow?
Yeah, I think the other problem is none of these problems are new. We've talked about that on the show before. I mean, I was seeing behavior like this in microcosm on forums that I ran in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It's that Twitter hasn't decided, are they the internet? Are they AOL? Are they a forum? Like, at what level should they get involved? I think in the past they were saying, we're an open platform, moderate yourselves. And at this point, there's enough people on it that it doesn't work. That doesn't work very well. That works in smaller communities, but Twitter is too large of a community for that to work.
Mm-hmm. Like, I'm not offended when people tell me they don't like me or they want to curse at me. That's fine. You know what? Everyone can have their opinion. That's what's great about the internet and everyone being able to communicate with each other. It's when people cross the line and dox people and are, sharing nude photos, say.
Yeah.
There has to be some sort of consequence for that. This would be illegal in real life. Why isn't it actionable on Twitter?
And there's also just numbers. Even lesser crimes than doxing of harassment that as a single person saying it once to one other person would be something that you could reasonably say, like, just ignore it. You can't ignore it when it's hundreds and hundreds for days.
Well,
it's an entirely different scale.
Even the tools like the mute button aren't foolproof. I've muted people that have come back unmuted, and I didn't unmute them. Why are they unmuted? If I block somebody, I'd like them to stay blocked. Why does Twitter decide, oh, we can unblock them for you now?
Yeah, and some of that's API confusion. Yeah.
So if these tools actually worked that they gave us, that would be a nice step forward.
Well, let's move on to another familiar story. Dropbox resetting passwords for users who have not changed them since 2012. It seems to be related to this 117 million account credentials from LinkedIn circa 2012 that have been kicking around for a while. Dropbox's security team noticed some hashed and salted passwords that looked familiar. So they said, look, we don't believe any accounts have been accessed recently as a result, but they're going to reset old passwords as a precaution. You'll get two kinds of emails. If you have not changed your password since 2012, you'll get an email saying you're going to have to change your password next time you log in. If you have, you'll just get an email saying we're doing this for people, so you should know that it's out there, but if you've changed your password since 2012, you should be okay. Does this kind of thing worry you, that it's like repeating over and over and over with big places like LinkedIn and Dropbox?
Well, there's also people who will use the same 5-letter password everywhere on the internet. The only email I got from Dropbox recently was, you haven't used your account in forever, so we closed it, and I was fine with that.
You're not worried at all because you're not using Dropbox. But.
No, it was smart of them to at least take some action. And hopefully those people haven't changed their email addresses who are still using Dropbox.
Yeah, absolutely. Alphabet has hired Airbnb's global head of vacation rentals and a former CEO of hotel deal site JetSetter. His name's Sean Stewart. Sean Stewart will become director of Alphabet's self-driving car unit. You know it as Google's self-driving car unit. Stewart will be tasked with commercializing self-driving cars. So here's your Google autonomous car picture. You have former Hyundai president and CEO John Krafcik as CEO of Alphabet's self-driving cars. So this is a guy who has worked in the audio industry, worked for Ford before he worked for Toyota. Then you have Tim Papandreou. He is a former San Francisco city employee and an expert on municipal transportation policy. So he's going to help them figure out how to keep those vehicles street legal. And then you have now Sean Stewart. Sean Stewart is an expert in short-term rentals. He did it at JetSetter, and now he's doing it, or he was doing it at Airbnb. So now he goes to self-driving cars. Put all these together, Jen, you start to see a picture of a service that Google would provide. Perhaps it's business to business to say, like, rent our fleet, maybe. But it feels more like when you've got Sean Stewart involved that it's consumer facing.
It does sound like Uber should watch out. But it's a neat group of people to have together, especially somebody who is well versed in the law side of things and how to keep things on the road legally.
Yeah. I mean, it's certainly Uber has something like that, but that's your point, right? Is that this is starting to mimic the structure of an Uber or a Lyft.
Well, that's the closest you can get to having a lobbyist on your team.
Yeah. And no, and that short-term rental experience is really interesting to me. Like, would this become sort of a merger of Zipcar type of situation where you pay a monthly fee and you get to share a car, or would it be more direct where people would buy self-driving cars for themselves, but then allow them to be used at certain times when they don't need them? Like when you go to work, your self-driving car could be used as a car sharing device from 9 to 5, as long as it's back in time to take you home?
I am real sure that that group of people will find a way to make it as efficient as possible.
Yeah, this is fascinating. Nikkei Asian Review says analysts believe they could start outsourcing Apple's mobile chips. Intel could start outsourcing Apple's mobile chips starting in 2018. If you remember, Intel just signed a deal to manufacture ARM-designed chips at its 10-nanometer foundries. TSMC is the current supplier of iPhone chips. Intel is already expected to supply some modem chips for the next model of iPhone. It was big news when Intel announced it would allow its foundries to make ARM-designed chips, and LG was the first customer. At the time, it sounded like they were saying off-the-shelf designs, no customizations. If this were to prove true, this would be an exception to that because Apple definitely doesn't use an off-the-shelf ARM design in its A-series chips, but it would be a huge win for Intel, who's tried to make inroads into mobile with their own Atom chips and found no success. They could suddenly be raking it in if they're making A7s or I guess A12s by 2018 for Apple.
I'm sure they really like money.
Yeah, they so well put. They do really like the money. Would it matter to you if there was an Intel manufactured chip inside your iPhone? I don't think it makes much difference to the end user.
I care about the chip that's in my computer. As for my phone, I care more about what it will do for me and how it will look. Because it's something I will carry around a lot more than I carry around my computer. So if they come out with some real sexy designs, I'll switch.
Finally, Belgian primary school headmaster Aveline Gregoire has developed a Facebook group called Chasseurs de Livres. Apologies to Patrick Beja for my pronunciation. That means book hunters in French. The group emulates Pokemon Go, so players hide actual books, post pictures on Facebook, so it's got a little geocaching element to it as well. And then other players hunt down the books, find them, read them, then release them back into the wild with a new picture. After only a few weeks, 40,000 people are signed up, and Gregoire is considering making an app for the game. I
love everything about this. I hope that they are protecting the books, like put them in Ziplocs or something.
Well, I was wondering about that. Like, what kind of protection against the elements do you do for the books? I mean, some books are easier to protect than others. It depends on if it's a paperback or a hardback. It is an interesting element to think this is not an e-reading generation. This is a generation that is still willing to go read paper books. To get 40,000 people signed up, like that is Pokemon Go level uptake in its section.
That's pretty quick for how they got that number. I'm a library user. I go to my library all the time. I pay for other library access, even though I could just get them shipped to my library, because I think libraries are amazing and everybody should use them. So a kind of app like this, I would be so down.
Yeah, I would like to see this take off, partly because we get a bunch of review copies of science fiction and fantasy books from Sword and Laser. We've got some ideas of what to do with them, but I would totally take a few of these out and cache them for people to find. And it's an extension of that idea of the free library. We've got one of these in my neighborhood where you can go, it's a little plastic box, so it keeps them dry.
You stick your books in there.
Yeah, you take a book, leave a book, right? Except it's adding a little more fun to it. I love this idea.
Just everybody has to continue to respect private property.
Yes, of course. No, it's got that same issue, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It is a little more educational than a Pokemon game, though.
As long as people are out and walking.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, now walking and reading. That's good. I definitely will be hunting Pokemon on my vacation, though. I'm not going to lie.
Please do.
I will. Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. We've got loads of great people submitting stuff, but we would like your submissions or at least your votes. Go join another J. Martin, Brian Blank, T-Glass 1976, Slemesme, Greg N., and more at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. And that is a look at the top stories. So a couple of days ago, Daily Dot reported that a company called Silver TV is getting $6.2 million in investments, which honestly, I mean, I make it sound like that's a load of money. In the world of investments, that's a perfectly normal amount of money. But Sliver TV, not Silver TV, I think I just said, Sliver is creating a platform for spectators to watch things like Counter-Strike, League of Legends, Dota 2, in virtual reality from within the game itself. Now, you may know that Valve released a VR clip of a Dota 2 match being viewed in VR, but it was more like a really big screen that you could watch the game on. ESL and Jaunt had a VR experience for IEM in San Jose last November. It was also a watching the game from within VR, but not from within the game. Sliver wants to give you floating camera angles and 360-degree views from the ground. Right now, it's doing highlights a day after game action, and so far they're only working on the cardboard platform. But they want to come to HTC Vive, Oculus, and PSVR, and they want to make it they want to get it closer to game time. I don't know if they could ever do this live. That sounds like a tall order, at least not anytime soon. But even day after, I find it fascinating, Jen, that the idea of esports spectating could already blow past what they're doing with traditional sports by allowing you to run around inside the game, essentially.
That would definitely change spectator mode, especially for something like CSGO, because then you are literally running around as whoever you chose to follow in the game. Or if you're following the broadcast cam, you'd be jumping around a lot, and that would be really disorienting.
Well, yeah, cameras were always an issue in sports because you could steal signs in baseball or something like that. I mean, this would be the ultimate spy situation if you have thousands of people able to be pouring their eyes over the entire map through the entire game.
Well, most tournament streams are on a slight delay to prevent this kind of thing from happening. Since the dawn of Twitch, people got wise to that in a hurry. So some of them are like as short as 2 minutes. Some of them are up to 10 minutes behind the live action. They try to keep it pretty close so that your Twitter experience is not full of spoilers.
Yeah. And at the same time, like we said, live version of this is probably a ways down the road. But even day after, would you be interested in doing that? I mean, as a player, would that help you see strategies and develop your game?
As a player, you want to keep things as close to your in-game experience as possible. Like for hockey players to do video review, you can see some things from that like third-party perspective that you couldn't while you're playing. For Counter-Strike, it might be interesting to see the map from a different perspective, or to maybe see an angle you didn't see before. But I think in terms of like regular practice, you're gonna want to practice exactly how you're gonna play.
Yeah. I still, as a fan, I mean, I remember at Tech TV back in the early 2000s, we were trying to figure out game coverage, and I was saying, well, what if we just put players in MMOs, and then we screen capture that, and they're essentially virtual cameramen, so they can show what's happening. And it was an interesting idea, but nobody could ever figure out how to make it actually work in a compelling narrative. It just was too hard to handle. This is that idea on steroids, which is like you don't even have to have a player, you don't have to have a cameraman, you just have God mode, God view of any position in a game while it's happening. I just find that fascinating.
I loved from the clip they released a while ago, I think it was for Dota, where you could look down and see the whole map at once and see where everybody was. And that was a different perspective than having just a little corner mini map. It's like, oh, look, there's everybody. And especially if you could just like quickly zoom in and zoom out while still having this huge overview, and then like maybe in your peripheral vision, you can still see the giant scoreboard without it taking up space on the map.
Yeah. So you could look up to see the scoreboard. It'd be floating overhead at all time. And as a spectator, being able to like, oh, I want to be down in that lane right now. Let me see what it's like from that perspective. And then once you've been there for a little bit, you could just flip easily over to another lane without having to run over there, right? You just jump over and see, well, what's happening over there. It's probably more choice than an average spectator wants, but even if it's being directed from a central location and doing that switching for you, it's going to give you way more immersion into the game as a spectator than anything ever has before.
And it's a lot of work for the devs, because if you are going to get that view that isn't available in the normal game, somebody has to create those assets.
Yeah.
And it's going to be at that level that is broadcast quality.
Yeah.
So, that's going to cost money.
That's why Sliver needs $6.2 million. Exactly.
So expect ads.
Yeah.
There will be ads in VR.
Now, I know you've been on vacation this summer, but there's been a lot going on in esports this week. And you were just telling me a few things earlier in the day. Get us up to date. Like on this week at esports, there have been some big events.
Yes, I will do a very quick high-level run-through of this week, so get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, there are definitely some popcorn moments, you're right.
Yes. So let's start with Valve. Valve surprised a lot of Counter-Strike teams and fans alike with their rules announcement. They modified the way coaches can interact with their teams. Counter-Strike, generally 5-on-5. A lot of teams had kind of used their coach as a replacement in-game leader. So instead of one of the 5 players calling out strategies and managing the economy, the 6th person, the coach, was handling all of that, while the 5 guys could just focus on shooting. Valve's like, nah, no more of that. Your coach can only talk to you at like halftime and during 30-second warm-up, that's it. So teams who have an in-game leader are thrilled. Everybody else is panicking.
Yeah, that's a different way to play the game, and I get where Valve might be like, no, we want to keep it
way.
Yeah, exactly. It's like the designated hitter in baseball. Like some people are going to be like, no, having a 6th man is great. Why would you stop that?
And then earlier in Dota, there was a video released where a Filipino team was accused of match fixing, which was previously thought to be more of a Counter-Strike problem, which at least Valve did take action on, because back in July they finally went after the gambling and betting sites and shut those down, which was wonderful. So at least I can stop talking about underage gambling.
That's good, yeah.
And then the big drama right now is over in League of Legends land. So one of Riot's co-founders decided to forgo any semblance of PR and publicly responded to a team owner that had criticized some management decisions. Team Solo Mid's owner rightfully questioned why these huge patches were dropping before major tournaments that would drastically, in some cases, change some players' roles. The Riot co-founder mentioned that, well, they're pro players, they just have to adjust, and took an extra shot, saying, well, you should just, pay your players more instead of losing money in other esports. That caused the floodgates to truly open, because anyone even tangentially involved in League had words to say about this. So you had casters coming in, you had sponsors coming in, you had the general esports people weighing in, all poking holes in Riot's general management strategy, pointing out how difficult it is for teams to make money, because Riot cuts off so many avenues for the teams. Sponsors are extremely limited in what they can do. TSM had to remove a video from their YouTube channel, which you'd think Riot wouldn't have control over, but they had to remove a video from their YouTube channel with them playing on the HTC Vive because it sort of advertised a game that wasn't League of Legends. So that video was just gone. Sponsors are complaining. Anything that gets sold during the tournaments, that goes to Riot, not the teams. And yeah, all that shouting's still going on if you want to just poke into any League Reddit or forum.
Or don't do that, maybe. Unless you got a bag of popcorn with you. I don't know.
So much popcorn.
Yeah. It does sound a little bit, not to pick sides, but it does sound a little bit like Riot's response was, why don't you just stop complaining, which is always going to just feed a flame war, right?
Especially coming from a co-founder who has previously said in the past that he isn't involved with patching or development or controlling the direction of the game, should not have stuck his foot in that. it was a weird response that should have come from a different channel, not directly from the co-founder.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that. And I'll get Jen to put links to all those stories in our show notes for you as well, if you want to follow up. If you did go get your popcorn as you're ready to look. Let's get to our messages of the day. Howard in Sunny Mountain, Maryland, said on Thursday's show we were briefly discussing Apple's failure at social media, and it got him wondering. They already have an awesome foundation in iMessage. If only they would unleash it from its exclusive Apple ecosystem. If Apple would develop a way to link it to work with Android phones, I suspect they could sell subscriptions to non-Apple device users for $1 to $2 a month. I, for one, would love to have iMessage work with my Nexus 5X and would gladly pay $12 to $20 a year for the privilege. Of course, the carriers would not be happy, but when has that stopped Apple in the past? You may notice that I left out PCs because we all know that Apple just sucks terribly at writing programs for PCs, says Howard. Yes, I'm looking at you, iTunes. I would like to be able to access my text messages through iMessage on Windows. As much as Howard says that Apple couldn't do it, they absolutely could do it if they really wanted to. I would also love to be able to access iMessage on Android, the way that I can access my Hangout messages on iOS. But I don't know, Jen, would you pay for that? I'm not sure that I would pay for it.
I would pay for an iTunes on Windows. It doesn't suck.
Yeah.
As for iMessage, I do enjoy iMessage, but most of my friends have migrated to, well, half of them are on WhatsApp and half of them are on Line, which you probably find out is really common in Japan.
Yeah, for sure.
And
I have Line installed, so we'll see if I start using it there.
I do enjoy Line. It's very pretty.
Yeah, Taylor Swift sends me exclusive stickers sometimes.
Oh, good. I don't mind iMessage. There are so many services people use. You basically want to go where all your friends are, and if I had to pay to go to where all my friends are, I'd probably suck it up and do it.
Well, WhatsApp was able to get away with charging 99 cents, but they almost never charged, and they gave people so many easements, and then they finally dropped it in favor of, as we learned yesterday, giving a little bit of data to Facebook and charging businesses to be able to send you messages. I don't think the business sending you messages is as big of a deal because it's similar to what goes on with text messaging. I get text messages from T-Mobile because I'm a T-Mobile subscriber and I want them to send me a message when my bill is ready, right? Like that's fine. So I think if WhatsApp keeps it to that, that's going to be okay. I don't like this idea of WhatsApp sharing data with Facebook, even if I can opt out from Facebook using the data. So I don't know how, like we said yesterday, I don't know how many people are going to ditch WhatsApp because of that, but it certainly is.
I am. I'm one of those people, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't use Facebook. I have a Facebook to protect my name, and that is it. It just exists.
So what are you going to turn to for your friends who are on WhatsApp then?
I'm going to go back to texting with them.
just SMS, yeah, cross-platform. Finish up with Alan writing on self-driving cars. He says, I think it's more about mindshare. He's referring to the test in Singapore that'll allow public passengers to ride in self-driving cars, the plans that Uber has to do the same thing in Pittsburgh. He says it's just getting them out there. Having drivers or engineers talking about them will increase that conversation and make people more comfortable. And then John, our boss from the Billings, Montana office, says there's been a lot of stories the last few weeks about various companies setting what seems like aggressive goals for autonomous operation. I'm with you on feeling like 5 years is aggressive, but remember, not so long ago, self-driving cars were filled with heavy computers and huge sensors. The videos of those vehicles driving looked really robotic. In less than a decade, we've gone from that to where you or I could actually buy a car that can safely navigate rush hour traffic for us. So while 5 years for full autonomy still seems a tad aggressive, considering where we were not that long ago makes me think that this change is coming a lot sooner than many of us might expect.
It really has. I love those old videos, though.
You won't be able to pay for your self-driving car with cash, though, Jen.
We'll see about that. I'll keep it in my mattress.
They'll have a slot here you can put some toonies in. You just, it goes like
hey,
a
in
kilometer.
In Canada, we're big on our coins, okay?
Yeah, I was going to say, it goes a kilometer, and then you have to put another coin in, and then you have to keep feeding it until it gets to your destination. That would actually be pretty amazing. Well, thank you, Jenn Cutter, for joining us today. A pleasure, as always. What do you got to let folks know about? Where can they follow you or find out more about what you're up to?
At Jenn Cutter on Twitter. I'm on a bit of a Twitter break right now, but that is still the best place to keep up. So that's JENNCUTTER.
All right. And then I see that Len got his machine working again and has made an amazing poster for us this week.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. It's unbelievable that I'm able to actually pull this off. To be honest, this is a miracle this week. But yes, eSports pumping money. You talked about turning this into a new. Actually, it's almost like a new sport in itself, and watching them put all this money into eSports. And so this is an image called eSports, with the S being a little $sign, because of course the little investor down in the corner here is pumping VR full of money from Das Money Machine, and it's
so they're German.
Yes, it is. That's just sort of
Gamescom.
Yeah, exactly. So right on. This is called eSports with a little $sign, and it's in my online store right now at lenperaltastore.com.
Absolutely. Go take a look, folks, and you can even order a copy for yourself.
For sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for supporting the show. Like I've told you a couple of times, in case you missed it, I'll be out for a couple of weeks on vacation, but we have lots of folks assembling to keep Daily Tech News Show coming, and the reason I'm able to do that is because you support the show. Thank you so much. Your Patreon dollars at work, patreon.com/DTNS. Or if you just want to learn more about supporting the show in general, dailytechnewsshow.com/support. If you just need all the headlines worldwide in technology every day in less than 10 minutes, be sure to subscribe at dailytechheadlines.com. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can catch the show live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Like I said, I'll be out on Monday, but Justin Robert Young and Veronica Belmont will be here. They'll talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
All right.
Boom.
I love that guitar riff.
I love the Monopoly money guy.
It honestly, I'm amazed that I was able to pull that together. Because then when you were talking about the the actual getting into the game and stuff like that, I'm like, oh, I missed a total cool opportunity there. But I don't know. I think this works. The money thing is always fun, and little Monopoly Man is always.
Oh yeah, no, this works great.
You can't beat curly mustache and top hat.
No
exactly.
Kidding.
Correct.
When has that ever been wrong? Never.
Never.
No one ever does the iron though. Is the iron still a piece?
The iron is still a piece. Yes.
Titles.
I'm gonna go with VR gets a game plan.
Okay.
Ooh.
I'm not sure what's the Hello Felicia.
I think they're
it's like
playing
Bye
off
Felicia.
Bye Felicia,
Oh,
but they're making it Hello Felicia.
Spot of punishment.
It's so subtle. I like that
block,
too.
Rinse, repeat. A nice Twitter. So it works. Like we already did an Intel ARM one. Really, it's an excuse for them to ramp down on the stuff that doesn't make them money anymore, like Atom. And this is the very important part. They don't want to sell their foundries off or spin off to a separate business the same way that AMD had to with Global Foundries.
Yep.
Because that's one of the tiers or pillars of technology that still keeps them ahead of the competition, is their ability to essentially just pump out their own chips.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. They want to make that money. They don't want to lose. They don't want to have to spin that out. Especially when you're looking at the chips they make right now as a declining business, at least for the time being.
It's
if
a declining.
Internet of Things picks up, maybe that won't be the case. But PCs, laptops, it's very, if not declining, it's certainly a stable, or some would call it stagnant.
It's a static business. But this is the interesting thing, is that they definitely will eventually, as time gets on, they can actually drop them down even smaller and basically make more money per yield. Eventually, chips like that find their way into embedded devices. 46 chips were still being made, I think, 10 years ago, and they were being used in a lot of embedded devices because, one, they were a known quantity, two, they're cheapest chips, and three, you could effectively use them in almost anything that needed a microcontroller or something smarter than a microcontroller. I think the space industry as well as military love them because I need a smart bomb. What do I need to control it with? Well, you can use one of our chips. It's about 15 years old, but still works, and it's cheap. And it's hardened. It's also very hardened.
By the way, Len Peralta, if people, you don't realize, he had to like reboot his computer from scratch right before the show. Photoshop wasn't even launched when we started the show. Not only did you finish the drawing and have it ready at the end of the show, but you've tweeted it now as well. Like, you would never know, Len.
Oh, well, you know, well, to be fair, before I had to restart, I had actually inked it in, so I had the idea. Oh, one thing I wanted to do that I never, and I don't know if you're interested in still doing this, Tom, is talking about the image again.
Yeah,
I don't know if you're
absolutely.
interested in doing that. One thing that I never did, and this is for the video viewers, is show you like how this all sort of works together, and how I do that, how I get it on online in time for the very end of the show for people to purchase or view or whatever they want to do. So just real quickly, it starts maybe about an hour before the show, maybe about 45 minutes before the show, and I look at what the main topic is, and I start brainstorming, and so then I start sketching it. So one thing I thought it would be fun to see is for me to turn off all these layers to let you see kind of what everything looks like. So I'm going to turn one by one. I'm going to turn everything off as we go along.
It's almost like reverse time lapse.
Yes, it is pretty cool. So I end up with just the ink, right? And so the ink is sort of like a, just like a, it just gives me like, as long as I get to this phase at around quarter till or right before the show goes, then coloring should not be a problem. But this is what a thing I never show anybody. Let me turn off the ink layer, and I'll show you what the pencils look like. So you can kind of see I did, this is the end pencil. I spent about 15 minutes doing the pencils for the show, but I went through like around 3 or 4 different versions of the pencils before I actually land on something that I think would be a fun little print or a fun little image, you know.
So you're kind of just brainstorming at that point.
Yes, yes, and so this is really super rough, but I knew I wanted to have this kind of balloony type guy getting infused with cash, and then I thought it would be kind of funny to have him pumped in, and a lot of times I use the headlines as sort of as cues for something that I would draw. If the story is about, you know, this time around it was like investors pump $6.2 million in, so I literally pumping money into a VR player I thought would be a lot of fun. So so then after that I turn off the pencil layer after I ink it in, obviously, and then everything just starts falling into place. And so what you see, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, Tim Vec had a question for you from the chat room. He wants to know, do you do it all digitally, or do you actually start with an actual pencil?
No, everything is done digitally. I work 100% digitally now. There is a day, very rarely, that I actually use an actual pencil to draw anything these days. But the nice thing is that I've spent the past couple years sort of pushing everything together so that it feels like I'm sitting at my desk, my actual drawing desk, which is now just basically it's just a receptacle for junk right now because I don't even sit at it. I sit at my computer all day long. So yeah, no, it's not. I don't have time to scan. It all comes down to timing. I wouldn't have time to scan stuff in and make things work. So it's all just So.
You use a Wacom tablet, right? Like an Intuos. Remember when they used to come with the little plastic top that you could kind of flip back? You can insert like a sheet of paper, like something you've penciled actually in.
Yeah, I remember that.
Then you would trace over it.
Yeah. Those were actually on the little the little tablets that were over to the side. Yeah, I used to have one of those, and actually I still have it, but I don't use it. I work on a Cintiq now, which is basically just a big monitor. So Photoshop is right on this monitor, and it's yeah. And Jen, you had said earlier we had talked about Photoshop and everything else, and that I actually own it. And I guess I didn't really even think about that because Creative Cloud is so totally different. I almost upgraded, but then I can do, Photoshop for me is not broken. Like it still does everything that I need to do, and sometimes I find that if I upgrade, that it's like, why did I just upgrade? For what reason? When if it's not broke, don't fix it. So I'm really super happy with CS6, and honestly, I mean, some of the new things that come into Photoshop, I don't even really necessarily use. I wouldn't use. So.
Yeah, I'm on video, so CS4 was the last one I had bought, and I waited because I knew they were going cloud.
Mm-hmm.
And I waited until my upgrade discount was going to expire because I wanted to let that go as long as possible. And then finally, so I got my discount on cloud for the first year, and now I'm on my second year, so now I have to pay full price in American dollars. But again, working with video, I need Premiere, I need After Effects, I need to be able to work with every possible codec. So Adobe's got all my money.
Yeah, it's worth it if you have a reason to upgrade, but since I'm not doing some heavy editing like that, it's just drawing, and I can kind of get it, get through with this stuff. It just comes down to the speed of my computer. And sometimes I wonder if like Photoshop, it's sort of a yin-yang sort of thing, like the computer's getting older, but also the Photoshop's getting older. It's sort of that weird mental thing that you think, should I upgrade, should I not upgrade? Anyway. But I thought people would enjoy that little.
Yeah, thanks for doing that.
That's
that was
awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, it's that's what goes into creating each one of the drawings every Friday for Daily Tech Do Show. So
I know the people on audio during the show don't get as much out of that, very obviously, because you can't see.
Right.
So we decided to do it in the post show. If you're listening to the Treasure Chest audio, you can go find the video on YouTube and see it. But it's a visual medium, right? So it's cool to take advantage of that since we have this video stream.
Absolutely.
Do you have to use a different nib with the Cintiq, like with the pen, or is it like do you have to buy, or can you just buy the standard?
I actually, for a while, I was using the one I'm using is a standard one because I'm finding that it doesn't break down as quick as some of the other nibs. For a long time, I was using this really soft sort of felt tip nib, which gave kind of a nice. It felt like you were drawing on paper. Only problem with that is that using it enough, it
wears away.
It does start to wear away. The other one I was using had like a had a little spring in it, so that felt a little bit more like you were pushing on a softer paper. I try things from time to time. This one, I've got a ton of these ones, so I don't have to necessarily upgrade all the time. And I just recently had to upgrade my pen, which was the first time I've ever had to do that. Because in order to speed up the process, I have mapped my erase to the button here, so I can just be drawing and then I'll be pushing the button and also erasing at the same time. So it's a really quick process. So what's really funny is when I go to draw for real, there's actually an image on my store of the Stranger Things Barb, behind you Barb, which I actually drew traditionally in real with real pen and ink, and I was so frustrated when I drew that because I was so used to like I had to erase things if I made a mistake, and it was like, oh man, this is so cumbersome, laborious to actually erase what kind of a plebeian am I? That I have
manual labor.
Manual labor. What is this? So it was really funny. But sometimes I like to go back to doing pen and inks occasionally, just because it's fun to get back to doing that. And there's things you can't do on the Cintiq that you can do with pen and ink. So. Everybody would want to know that. I don't know.
I think people are just thinking it over. Yeah, that's really cool. We should do this more often. I love this.
For sure. Yeah.
Share your secrets.
Yeah, for sure.
Tablets are handy in all sorts of things. Video editors use tablets all the time just to save mouse work, because otherwise you get the claw thing going on.
Yes, and it does spoil you. Although what I will say is that it has improved me as an artist. Jumping between both worlds, traditional and digital, it's pretty amazing. You really learn a lot, and if people are thinking about making the switch to digital, what I'll say is that there was a huge learning curve. I just thought that I could go, I can draw on a computer, I'm fine, and it was not like that at all.
No.
It was really.
It's really hard.
It is. It's really hard. And this is no. I mean, this is going from doing like the Wacom over to the side to actually drawing on the Cintiq, which I thought, oh, pshaw, this is the easiest thing in the world. And I was flabbergasted how difficult it was for me, and I felt like a total failure for like about a year of my life. So I'm like, I don't know how to draw. This is terrible. But it really is. It's just you're just learning how to use a tool. So, you know. It's one of those things. So
it does make it easier in the end, but there's a learning curve you have to get around.
Correct. Yes, I've worked on it now. I've worked on 100% digitally for 4 years now, and it's definitely like I've learned the limitations, and I have expectations for what I can do on the art. So every day, every drawing is still a challenge because I'm trying to make it look as if it's not a digital drawing. And that in itself is a challenge.
What do you mind me asking? Like, how do you define? Like, what do you mean by like looking like a digital drawing? Do you mean it's a little too clean, or?
Yes. Okay. Yes. If you look at the drawing here, I'll put this back up on the screen share. I am a big fan of Scotty Young, who draws digitally. But if you ever look at Scotty Young's stuff, he draws for Marvel and stuff like that. He does things with his digital ink that makes it look as if the ink is bleeding. And for example, here at the bottom, you can see the imperfection of this line right here at the bottom. The line weight goes from really, really thin to thick all of a sudden. That's something that would happen if you're using a pen and actual dipping an India ink into a paintbrush. Mm-hmm. So these are things that are imperfections that I'm trying to replicate in a digital world. So that was something that took me a real long time, and I still struggle with it. So
I struggle with the physical motion. Is a little different. Like moving from, because my background like in art is drafting, which really isn't art, but it's mechanical drafting. And the one thing I had to get over is like one is a tactile feedback, but also when you work on a tablet, you're not necessarily working over the same space, and so your muscle memory is doesn't perfectly map over. It's not a one-to-one.
Yes.
And so what you think you're doing, you're actually not doing. When you actually look at it, it's like, and you get really frustrated and you get all pissy. Well, I get pissy.
Well, the other thing too that helps do that is create the different tools, little nibs, like creating brushes that mimic what you do in the real world. So this is the one I use a lot. It's called a bold wet sable, which is actually based on a paintbrush. So
also the name of your second album.
Yes, but if you can kind of, and actually that was my wrestling name in high school.
Bold wet sable. In this corner.
You can kind of see.
This. That's so
nice.
Yeah, so you got
so angry when I see you
got this line here.
That would take me hours.
Literally, it would take him hours.
Not even joking.
But what's interesting, and this is the part that I don't show here, because I don't show all my tools, because I'm giving you tips, but I'm not showing you everything that I'm doing. There are like about 30 different brushes that I have here, all different line weights, so I can get really, really small, and so get in there and do some things here. Or I can get really, really big. So it's that's sort of that's the little secret. So, by the way, just another plug. If one of the things that I am trying to do at my Patreon is I am like $20 away from unlocking an extra video per month, where I will do like a Bob Ross sort of thing where I'm talking over of the video and explaining what I'm doing, and so I will give a lot of more hints and tips and stuff like that, but I have to hit that first milestone. So.
Yeah, that's worth getting behind, folks. This is good stuff. I'd love to see more of this.
For sure. So when do you leave on your vacation?
Tomorrow.
Yes, nice.
Tomorrow, like plane takes off at like 3-ish.
Are you going to be tweeting from overseas?
Oh yeah, I've got my Project Fi SIM card.
Got your funky new phone all set up?
Yeah, Nougat hasn't shown up for my 5X, so might have to go get the image and make it So I was hoping it would just show up for the end of the week. It showed up for my tablet, but not for my phone. And then my iPhone has T-Mobile, which will roam as well. So yeah, that should be good. And then plus they have like all kinds of internet in Japan, I hear. Like,
Is that true?
Yeah.
Don't you have to catch it though, like a Pokemon?
Yeah, you do. Yeah, it's either large and a lizard that wades out into the sea, or it's a small monster that you have to catch with a ball.
Ball monster.
So who's taken over the show? I guess different. It's your
me. We have. Who do we have? Oh, Justin, Scott, and Patrick.
For the whole week?
Totally
for the whole 2 weeks.
Oh my gosh. Well, that should be fun. That'll be fun.
Yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Roger's got a perfect amount of pre-2-week nervousness. It's not so much that I'm actually worried. It's just enough that I know he'll make sure everything works. I'm not.
He'll be fine.
I am not concerned at all.
Hassling everyone. Well, you're here next week, right?
I am. Yes.
So that will be Annalie Newitz from Ars Technica.
Nice.
And Jen's back. You're back next Thursday, right?
I am, yes.
Yeah,
with Patrick Beja.
Looking forward to that too.
Woohoo! All right, guys. Well.
Yep. I'm
gonna go
published, so I'm gonna take off too.
Right,
Roger, you can stop the broadcast.
Stopping broadcast. Thank you, everyone, for watching.
Bye, everybody.